On this week's episode of the EchoCast, we talk about Battlefield revealing details about Hazard Zone, Ghost Recon already delaying Frontline, a big new studio announcement, possible movement on the Division front, and much, much more. Let's get into it. Welcome to the EchoCast. I am Morgan, aka Bond Diesel, and this is a podcast about gaming, tech, and whatever else I feel like ranting about. Please take a moment to subscribe to and rate the podcast on whatever platform you use to listen to it. Comments, likes, and subs on YouTube, retweets on Twitter, and especially iTunes reviews are the most helpful. Also, be sure to let me know if you have any questions or topics for the next show by tagging me on Twitter, submitting them in the YouTube comments, and by becoming a patron. You can also, during the stream, post them in the chat, and if I can get to them, I will. Thank you to this month's Patreon supporters, PK, Uber Timmy, Hassan, Darren, Christian, Man-Made Golf, and Dale. If you would like to support this podcast and my other content, please check out patreon.com/BondDiesel. Gaming news, let's get into it. Battlefield 2042 released a Hazard Zone trailer. This was something I wanted to talk about, but Craig Laporte on Twitter also suggested the topic. So to preface, I did do a live stream of this trailer. In hindsight, I made the mistake of doing a live stream and then not looking to see if content creators released more info. The actual trailer they showed us didn't really show us that much. It was just kind of a mostly CGI pre-rendered thing. It had little itty bits of content, but not very much. And I was not very impressed. If you check out my YouTube, I have that video up. But on the other hand, I then watched a video by Matimio or Level Cap. I can't remember which one. All of those old Battlefield YouTubers all kind of merge into one in my head. But Battlefield also posted a big blog explaining in pretty great detail what 2042's Hazard Zone is, which I'm going to do my best to recap and shorten, even though it's this might be the longest notes I've ever typed for an episode. So I'm basically just going to read the summary, and then I'll discuss what I kind of think about everything. So Hazard Zone appears to be a new mode that seems like it's kind of a hunt showdown type of mode. Some people have been saying Escape from Tarkov. I think after reading these details, I think it's so much more hardcore. Tarkov is so much more punishing and hardcore. I don't think that's a very good comparison, but if you want to, then go nuts. It seems like it's going to be even more competition for a game like Ghost Recon Frontline, which we'll talk about what's going on with that game in the next story, I think. But here's the gameplay details of Hazard Zone as I understand them. It appears to be a round-based mode where you and your squad are tasked with recovering data drives from crashed satellites randomly around the map. It's not technically a BR, but only 2 squads per round can get out. And there's 2 different extraction opportunities. The whole point of extracting is to get out as many of these data drives as you can. So the idea is that you can get in, grab 1 or 2, and then get right out. And in the first opportunity, or you can grind longer and try to get more and more and more, and then try to do the second one, but that's the last one. So you're probably going to have a lot more competition for that second and final extraction. There is a storm mechanic, it sounds like, that you cannot operate in and will act kind of as a more BR type of encouragement, probably to certain areas, especially the final extraction. On top of the other squads you'll be fighting and competing with, there will be AI like NPCs and people to fight. They'll be mostly guarding the drop locations of the data drives, but they could be randomly out in the world as well. You start each round in a mission briefing area that shows you the regions of the map with higher or lower likelihood of data drives, which will also show you the more risky areas and so on and so forth. If this is also where you will select your specialist and the equipment and loadouts that they will have. There will also be a market where you can buy guns and gear that you prefer using dark market credits, which you earn from successful extractions and I believe other activities. On top of your equipment, you can also purchase tactical upgrades that allow you to do things like carry extra throwable gadgets or lower your bounty payoff that you earn from killing NPCs. And that little detail, I don't think they really detailed that system, but they did explain it as one of the purchasable upgrades. So it sounds like there may be a system of the more NPCs you kill, that they put out a bounty on you and they may aggro you, or if they go real wild, that they could essentially spawn in or drop in like more elite like NPC groups that only come in to come after people with high bounties because you've killed a bunch of their friends, right? That's a system that is kind of intriguing. Once you insert into a map, you will begin searching for downed satellites to collect their data drives, as well as fighting other squads and AI soldiers. If you or a squad mate dies during the round, you can be brought back, but only in certain circumstances. It sounds like there's a bonus you can buy before you go into a round that will allow you to revive people to bring them back. Or it sounds like there's going to be very rare but findable places where you can bring people back. There are call-ins so you can uplink locations. Let's see. There are call-ins that you can make at uplink locations that let you bring in support equipment like vehicles or bring back a down teammate, which is what I was saying before. If to get out, to extract, you have two chances to do that. The first extraction will be shortly after the round begins, and the second one will be very late in the round to end the round. When you try to extract, you'll need to fight other squads who will also be trying to extract, as well as AI that will aggro the extraction area. I didn't really see anything specifically explaining, like, do you have to kill everything? Do you have to kill anyone who's in the vicinity? Or is there just like a timer and then you jump on a plane or a helicopter and take off? We don't know yet. Or at least I didn't catch that from what I read. There is a progression system in place that will be based on the things you do during each round, including but not limited to extracting, recovering data drives, and killing AI or other players. This progression sounds like it will count towards the battle pass, and if you extract repeatedly, you get bonuses for like stringing together extractions, which sounds pretty cool to me. They say the rounds, there's basically a shotgun of a few extra little details here. Rounds are expected to last about 20 minutes. PC and next gen consoles will have 32 players on each round. Last gen consoles, PS4, PS4 Pro, Xbox One X will have 24 players. Rounds will take place on the 7 maps that have already been discussed that are coming at launch, and I would imagine that they'll probably add more maps as more maps get added to the main game. I thought I saw a number that 23 maps is the goal, but considering they literally just canceled a ton of content from Battlefield 5, I'm not going to hold my breath that that's going to happen, but it's going to depend on how people enjoy the game. And they are claiming there are no pay-to-win elements. So my thoughts on it. I'm a little more intrigued than I was before. I was afraid they were just gonna really go down the very expected, just kind of playing BR style, kind of trying to pull like a Warzone or something like that. This whole extraction, I at first I was thinking that they were gonna make it like really hands off, like really non BR, by giving us where you could, you'd have like many opportunities to extract. By them making it only two extractions, I mean that's really pushing it heavily into BR territory, because it may not mean that you're fighting to the last squad, but you're fighting to two squads, which, let's see. So that means that there's going to be 8 squads on PC and next gen. So, 6 squads won't make it. And something tells me the maps won't be so big that you won't make it because you couldn't get to an extraction. So it sounds like to win, if you want to extract early, you're probably going to need to fight 2 or 3 other squads. And then if you want to get out late, you may have to fight 4 or 5 other squads, depending on if those squads get wiped from AI or by other squads, or if everyone kind of stays away but then congregates at the extractions. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's interesting. The kind of main takeaway I have from it actually came from some questions that were asked by Zeka and Master Prime on Twitter when I put out an open ability to ask questions about this, and asking basically, is the fact that this mode is going to be locked behind a paywall going to doom it, essentially. I think that if they truly are trying to compete with the Warzones, the Apexes, the PUBGs, the Fortnites, they really need to make this mode free to play. In a similar vein to like what Halo Infinite is doing with their system, their multiplayer is going to be free to play. You don't have to, if you don't want to play the Halo single player, you can just free download it and play it. You're good to go. Go nuts. Play the multiplayer, play Big Team Battle, play Slayer, do whatever you want. Excellent. Perfect. Or if you want to play the single player, you buy that. That's what you buy, which it sounds like is going to be kind of a live service thing. So my thoughts are, since there is no single player with 2042, it sounds like the story is going to be kind of loosely told, kind of on the side. They could probably still get away with saying multiplayer and Portal are going to be paid, but you guys can play Hazard Zone for free. And the reason I think that would be a smart tactic is that you're not going to pull people from all of the BRs to come play multiplayer. The way Battlefield multiplayer is, it's an acquired taste, in my opinion. And I think the best way to get people into it who maybe haven't played a Battlefield before would be to get them in for free on the Hazard Zone and then get them interested in the paid side of it. Because I mean, it's hard to argue that Battlefield multiplayer experience isn't a unique experience. It definitely is. But you may have to get people's foot in the door first, especially now, because if you're talking about younger gamers who, maybe weren't interested in Battlefield 1 or 5, they weren't interested in a World War 1 or World War 2 game, which I even wasn't. That means the last modern Battlefield was 4, and that was probably released years before a lot of young gamers were allowed to play it, or even were skilled enough to play it, or cared about it. So you have to, people have to realize that this Battlefield is the first modern Battlefield for a large percentage of the player base and of the shooter player base. So all your Call of Duty kiddies and Fortnite kiddies and stuff like that, they weren't even probably aware of Battlefield 4. So while obviously you're trying to pull in those people from the legacy of this IP, you also can't rely on that. You need to try to pull in new, and one way to do that is to get them in for free. So if they don't make it free to play, I don't think it will be as big of a disaster as the Battlefield 5 BR they tried to do, which I fizzled out literally in days, I'm pretty sure. And then I know they shut the servers down not long after, because just I assume no one was playing it. I don't think it's going to fizzle out like that. I think it will do better than that, even if it stays behind the paywall. I just think that the people who are paying for Battlefield, even after that kind of rough beta and stuff like that, are the people who are into the conquest and rush modes, or I think they're calling rush something different now because it's not exactly the same. But the people who are like diehard Battlefield fans probably aren't super interested in Hazard, because the reason they're spending that $60 is to play conquest and rush, right? So if you want to try, if the whole point of the BR is to try to compete with those BR games and pull people from them, you can't tell them, hey, you could go play those acclaimed, loved games for free, or pay $60 and maybe like this. I don't know. So I think it'll do okay. It sounds like it'll be interesting, but I think they either need to make it free to play, or Microsoft and EA have to do a last minute Game Pass announcement that Battlefield 2042 is on Game Pass Ultimate for PC and Xbox. I think that's the only other way that they can get enough population in there. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. The second topic today is the Ghost Recon Frontline test has been delayed. They announced on the 13th, which was, I believe, only about a week after the game was announced at all, that they were going to indefinitely delay a test beta kind of thing they were going to do. They didn't give a reason, but there's lots of speculation that the negative reaction to Frontline is why they are doing this. I think they underestimated how people would react to the announcement not being a Breakpoint sequel, and instead that it was going to be a free-to-play BR adjacent, Tarkov slash, Hunt Showdown slash whatever BR umbrella, genre game. At some point, you're always going to have people complain. I'm still very adamant that 90% of toxicity and like irrational complaints come from like 2.5% of the gaming community, but they're loud, right? And they're a lot louder than the people who are happy. And they seem to be persistently upset about everything. And I think this is a weird move, because they had to have known that if they were going to announce, they really played up in the lead up to this Ghost Recon event. The future of Ghost Recon will be announced, and they even had like a timer and everything during the show, because they forced you to watch all the Breakpoint crap for a long time, and then gave you the Ghost Recon, the news, and it really, really implied that they were talking about like the next big game, and for Ghost Recon. And maybe Frontline is a giant game being worked on by hundreds and hundreds of people, but it's still going to be put into that spin-off category, as it should be, in my opinion, just like Heartland should be, even if it's being developed by a really good dev, and it might be amazing. Who knows? We don't know anything right now about any of this stuff. But what's most interesting about the Frontline delay to me is that it was going to be like a beta, so like it just is what it is, and they had to have expected at least some pushback. So what that leaves is that it almost feels like cowardly. And I know I'm like playing both sides of the thing here. Like I ripped on this concept. I don't like Wildlands. I really, really don't like Breakpoint. And this Frontline thing just seems like another situation of Ubisoft just being like, we know what you want. It's not what you're telling us you want, but we'll tell you what you want. It definitely feels like that. Or what it really feels like is, hey, there's a genre. Let's make a game for that. Instead of, we have this really great IP and it's going to be in this genre and we think people are going to like it, you know? But so they had to have known there was going to be pushback. And so it feels like so like weak need to pull this test if it was really because of pushback, which I bet it was. I'm sure there was a technical reason. And it feels so weak to pull it, to delay it, especially indefinitely, and not give a reason. Like, do you not believe in the product you're working on? Like that's how it comes off to me. Is that, does this dev team, does the publisher, do the people around this game, are they so insecure about this game that some nerds on Twitter complaining about it and it getting ratioed real bad with likes and dislikes on YouTube? To me, like, if you believe in your product or in what you're making, you don't let, the 2.5%, screaming at you, make you completely change these types of plans. Because you would think that if it was a technical reason, then the week before they wouldn't have said that there was going to be a test. So it had to have been because of pushback. And if you delay your people seeing your game because of pushback, then do you believe in your game? And that just, I don't know. To me, it does not bode well for that game if its own publisher / developer, whoever is in charge of this decision, gets spooked that easily. To me, it kind of feels like maybe, I don't know. Maybe they should rethink if they're planning on making any more announcements like this for other franchises. That's all I'm saying. The third story today was from a new studio, and this really only caught my eye because a bunch of the developers are pretty notable, and especially that they're all coming from very notable places. So the founder of Undead Labs, which is a Xbox studio now and has been for a few years, they're currently making State of Decay 3. Has announced a new studio. So I'm going to be totally honest. I don't know exactly the ownership situation of this person. From what I remember, I think that the person who is founding this new studio did not had left Undead after they sold to Xbox. That it was kind of okay, Xbox, here's my studio, I'm bouncing to do something else, if I remember correctly. Now, they had just released State of Decay 2 when they got purchased, so I don't remember what the timeline looked like, but I'm pretty sure this person left. Like, they don't have two studios. So the studio is going to be called Possibility Space, and it has developers and people on their roster already from Undead Labs, of course, Ubisoft, Insomniac, Double Fine, BioWare, and a bunch of other notable studios. They are saying that their goal is to make AAA games of some type. Just like every other new studio, they kind of said, like, we don't want to do the same thing everyone else is doing, and we want to push boundaries. That's what every studio says, and then they put out a game that looks like every other game that's come out for the last 10 years. So we don't know any details about projects. We don't know anything about publishing, a publishing situation. It would surprise me if maybe Microsoft makes a play on this, because it's, the head they've worked with, the founder before, and they're scooping up studios, and so is PlayStation. So maybe PlayStation goes in there and gets them. What would be really cool is if they would just stay a third party and put games out on PC and Xbox and PlayStation, and even go nuts and put it on the Wii. Hopefully not, because you shouldn't need to make those kind of concessions for your game. I'm just saying. So yeah, definitely interested to see what comes of that. That's a mighty fine collection of studios that they've gotten people in from, and it'll be nice to see what they are working on in 6 to 10 years. The final bit here is kind of what seems to be a weekly show at this point, my Division updates section. the big thing that Yannick, who is leading Heartland, or who is leading the Division Two new content, and most of us know him as a community developer, I believe, on Division One and Two. So he did two things. First, he posted, he did a quote tweet of someone saying, "Please say that there's more content still coming for Division Two," and he did a quote tweet saying, "There is more content coming for Division Two." Like, I understand it's like part of their job, and they probably aren't, as in like the developers and stuff are probably less annoyed about this kind of stuff than I am. But like, every time these poor people tweet anything, even if it's not game related, "Hey, are you guys still working on Division Two? Hey, just stop being lazy and put out new content." It's just like, God, these people who just like incessantly, and I'm not trying to be a dick, but I always get curious when I see these people post this stuff. Like Hamish, who's not even on Division anymore, can post like a picture of his bike, and someone will pop in there and be like, "Oh, Division's a dead game. Got any more content coming?" And I'm just saying that when I'm always kind of curious, I'm like, what, who what kind of content does this person interact with? And I'm telling you, every single time you can click into these people's profiles, and their whole, they don't make any tweets themselves, and all they have is retweets, and it's always the same like 5 or 10 people that you expect it to be. It's if they're a big Division fan and they're borderline harassing these devs who maybe not aren't even on Division anymore, there's always like a handful of names that you just know that they retweet. It's like they retweet like 2 different creators, and they retweet everything that they post. It cracks me up every time. It is so funny to me. But it is what it is. Yannick and all these guys, they've always really handled it pretty well in stride. And so yeah, that was the first thing, is that Yannick was very clearly confirming we're still working on content. It's still coming. I don't think it's coming for a while. I think we're probably 6 months out from it, if I have to be totally honest, but maybe I'm wrong. And he didn't reveal any details like that. We just know there is still Division 2 content coming. The second bit that came from Hamish, from Yannick, was we're getting really into the weeds here. A few people pointed this out to me, so I figured it was worth mentioning. Oh, no. That's the third thing. The second thing is that Yannick also posted a 15 tweet thread explaining what happened to State of the Game, and how it was a much more in-depth project than most people realized. And with people getting new jobs and leaving Massive and then moving to a whole new studio, and there not really being a ton of like big major news to reveal, it just didn't make sense to keep it going, and that they do hope it kind of returns, at least in some capacity, eventually. That is a thing that I don't think people realize, that like there's not many games, and obviously throughout Division 1 and 2 they didn't do State of the Games every week, but for the first year and a half of both games they did. And sometimes they do more than one. And then even after that with Division 1, they never stopped them. They took breaks, but they never stopped. And then for quite a while with Division 2, they kept it going. It seemed like basically for a while after Warlords, and then it disappeared. And as I've talked about in previous podcasts, that makes sense, because it sounds like they basically moved everyone not long after Warlords, not just the comm devs, but also developers, to other projects. So I really don't think people realize that having a whole studio like they had, having like legitimate like broadcasting equipment, and scripts and notes, and rehearsing their show, and even though it may not have always seemed like it, and that was a serious operation, and there's not very many games, even giant AAA games, that do that. It was a very unique situation, and I think much of the player base never fully appreciated how rare something like that happens. So as for the future, people were kind of putting in their thoughts to Yannick, and mine was that like I think that maybe some type of live conversation for big content drops for maybe really significant patches that are coming would make sense. But I mean, they're not going to do weekly shows ever again. Maybe even if a Division 3 comes, that may not really return. Um, I really don't think people realize that to have the same community people like we did, that was basically the like core team of like Yannick, Hamish, even Petter there for a long time, and then some other people who kind of shuffled in and out. You don't typically have people stay with one franchise for that long. If you've paid attention to com devs, it's even within other Ubisoft games, people bounce around every couple months, it seems like. And so we really got spoiled, and maybe it wasn't everything people wanted it to be. Maybe it had its issues and things like that. But regardless of even all of that, it was a very unique situation we got with State of the Game. And my only real bummer, I understand why it couldn't go on, because it really probably didn't need to go on. And honestly, the blogs they put up are good, and doing like pre-recorded reveals I think is fine. I don't think we need State of the Game necessarily, especially where the game is now. My biggest bummer will always be that they didn't get one more show. And to me, what that says is it kind of reinforces that what I've heard and what's been implied, that after Warlords dropped, like they basically just cleaned out, that things change very quickly, and probably not by their choice, because like if they would have, like I don't even remember what the last State of the Game was, but I suspect it wasn't like some grand exit. I suspect it was, if I remember correctly, it was God, a year ago, if not more. And they were like, okay, well, we'll be back after, our summer break. And then they just never came back because there wasn't anything to talk about. And even the announcement that there was more Division 2 content coming was just I think a tweet, if I remember correctly. They didn't even do any kind of recording for it. So, it's a bummer. I wish they would have gotten their grand exit. I wish that Hamish and Yannick and Petter and anyone who's been involved in the history, Ella and Taylor and other people, it would have been really cool to just have one send off where it could have just been like maybe an hour show where they could have talked about what State of the Game was like to do and the kind of experience it was, and maybe bring on some of the people who had been guests fairly frequently, like Thylander and some other people. But instead we got we'll see you next time. And then they went to go buy cigarettes and they never came back. Uh, we were orphaned by them. So, it's still cool for them to get, what we got. And, at the very least, I think it's cool to try to remember, how dope that was. The last bit was that Yannick commented on a YouTube video with a very ominous smiley, and the YouTube video was by NGN, who many of you will know as kind of a lore minister of the Division franchise, who posts a lot of speculation and a lot of kind of recaps and kind of and things like that. For the Division, as well as some other games, whenever he has time. And so the video that Yannick commented on was basically speculating or kind of clarifying where the story is at in Division 2 as of right now, which is post Season 4, Manhunt 4, where we tracked down and presumably killed Fei Lao, the first bit, I believe. So the video referenced Keener potentially being alive, but NGN seems pretty skeptical of that. NGN seems pretty confident that Keener's dead, which I'm on the same page as that. And so I don't think that's going to be a plot point moving forward, but who knows? They really screwed us by doing that. The Hornet season, which they even cut out of the replays, where like bringing back Hornet, especially with like a new voice actor and presumably like basically a whole new character, gave us the possibility that players that enemies or people who die in the game in theory can come back that kind of sucks. And hopefully they don't have to deal with that too much in the future. Um, the second bit was talking about Faye's status at the end of the manhunt and whether she's really dead or not, because we didn't get like an Isaac confirmation. Um, he seems like he was speculating a bit in that video about like, oh, I don't, maybe people didn't collect the voicemails that she left everyone during that season, but it makes it really clear that she was an agent. She was, you know, going in and taking out the president, who was still in charge of Shade, but you know was also working for the enemies, to get a person into that position who isn't a traitor. And she makes it super clear in her voicemails. So I don't really think there should be any question whether or not she was bad or not. My whole thing with her manhunt mission not clearly saying she was dead is that mission just basically seems unfinished. There's been multiple people who have talked about it, including NGN, and how like during the trailer for season 4 or the last manhunt, there was a cut scene where your agent goes and punches Faye and she's surrendering. So there was, that mission was obviously supposed to play out a different way, and just seems like it just didn't get finished. And I think the reason that we didn't get a Faye's dead Isaac announcement is I bet they didn't have it recorded. I bet that in the crunch and the lack of people who were still working on the game through that that last year, it was probably a skeleton crew, and they probably didn't have the resources or ability to record more Isaac. And I bet that's what happened, that there just wasn't a sound file for Faye to die. I think Faye's dead, personally. The last bit of his video was talking about how future content that's coming could involve hunting Sokolova, who we know is the leader of Black Tusk, after the events of all the manhunts, which I think is a pretty fair assumption to make. So that was the video. And then Yannick, posted a smiley on it. It's hard to extrapolate what Yannick intended by doing this on the video, but hopefully it means they do intend to continue the story in some capacity with the upcoming content. Yes, I am reporting on emojis posted on YouTube videos now. That is how desperate we are. And that's just where we are. Yannick is a consummate professional, and I've never known Yannick to be one to like leak things or be too. He does like to kind of stir things up a little here and there. I'm not under the impression he's like really clearly previewed or teased stuff before, so he may have just been appreciating some cool content, or it very well may be there were some things that NGN touched on that they're gonna touch, that they're gonna go after. It wouldn't surprise me. There's always the possibility that they're going to correct that final mission with Faye, where we may get a cutscene with the new content that opens up the new content and shows them medevacing Faye out, and her explaining or something happening where we realize like, oh man, like she was actually doing good. Like we know that, but maybe more story on it. The other part is that we still have a whole timeline of Chernenko or whatever is supposed to be at the White House making antivirals in that crazy machine that's in the boo that we acquired, and it just nothing ever happened with it. There's all kinds of loose ends, as there always have been in this franchise. The last bit of news I will say that's Division related is there's a rumor going around that there have been multiple testing emails going out, implying that there's a big test happening at the end of this month for some game. It sure seems like it could be Heartland. I suspect that if it's going through these channels, it's not going to be a public test. It'll probably be a behind the scenes test, which means I won't be able to talk about it if I have anything to do with it. But I've got so much to say about that game, and I literally can't right now. But I will be able to hopefully soon. In theory, this test could be for any game, but the timing of it to me seems too perfect for it not to be Heartland, another test, because that game's basically been radio silent since the last test they did. So we'll see what's going on, but we won't talk about it. For listener questions, we did have one question come through chat from I Can't Bear It. Have multiple things here. It always felt like Phelan mission and everything that happened wasn't what Massive wanted to happen. It seemed like they've been jerked around by Ubi. And then a question of, do you believe we'll ever actually get a real Hunter's background story reveal? So this is Division related stuff. Thank you, Barrett, for listening and for contributing on there. I absolutely, I think you're dead on with the Ubi jerked around stuff. I wish I could say I know that for a fact, but whenever you say that, people want your sources, and I am not going to do that. So I will heavily speculate that the Division 1 and 2 as a whole, especially 2 and 1 as well, weren't the games that they really wanted to make. They did as much as they could with what they were allowed by big money, deep pockets Ubisoft, because that's who's in charge at the end of the day. And I think it's a real shame that it seems like after Warlords, they basically got kicked off to do something else. Now, I'm sure most of them are hyped to be working on a Star Wars game, because that's freaking awesome. Like someone told me at one point, they're like, I get to write Star Wars lore. Like the things I do in this game will become canon for my favorite franchise. Like that's really freaking cool. You know, that is cool. So I'm happy that they get to work on a new franchise, get to do something different. But I am under the impression that there is a frustration that the game that we play and love isn't even the final form. And then your actual question about the Hunter's backstory, if you want me to be 100% honest, I hope we never find out what the Hunters are. I don't want to know their backstory, because what I'm afraid of is it's going to be like they're Russians, which with the Sokolova stuff with season 3 or the third Manhunt seems like it's being implied at least a little bit. We'll see. I always wanted the Hunters to actually be another American program where it was a last ditch kind of white blood cell, or kind of last ditch kind of check and balance for the division, for Shade, and that maybe it got hijacked or something like that, and that's why they're not just killing Rogue, because you have to think that when they came up with the division with the directive and Shade and stuff, that someone had to say, but what if these autonomous people go too far? What if they go rogue? What's our answer to that? And one answer would be other, good agents, which is what happens. But I always thought that there may be like a thought of, okay, well, we'll have another group that can try to keep them in check. And that's what I always wanted the Hunters to be. It really seems like, especially after the Manhunts, especially after the third one, it seems like they're pretty heavily implying that it's going to be a foreign power or something like that, which I just think sucks, but we'll see. We'll have to see what comes of it. Maybe they'll explain it. Kind of hope they don't. I just want to kill more of them. I'm afraid that whatever they explain it with won't be satisfying, but we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Two questions from Mr. Prime that came from Twitter. Are you getting an Xbox mini fridge? I will talk about that in a moment. I would love to get one, but if I order one of those and Beatties will seize it on our credit card or in my streaming room, probably right back there, she will murder me. And so that's probably not going to happen. But I would love to do it. It would be so cool to get one. And then opinions on Back 4 Blood. So I've only played the release version of Back 4 Blood for like 2 hours. It's fine. I was never a big Left 4 Dead fan. So Back 4 Blood seems like, for people who like those type of games, it's great. For me, I like the gunplay. I like the mechanics with the cards and stuff like that. The levels, the game looks nice. It's nice to play. It's just those kind of games just like wear on me so much. Like, I don't know if it's like an anxiety thing or what, but like those games are just hard for me to play and play and play. It's I typically I typically can't just really focus on those type of games. So it seems like the type of game where I'm gonna say like it looks like a really good game, I will dabble because I can play it for free through Game Pass, or as part of a subscription, not for free. But I don't expect myself to put more than maybe 5 or 10 hours into Back for Blood. But for people who've always been waiting for that next Left 4 Dead, it seems like you got it. So, yay. And then, yeah, the last bit here is I really do want to do some type of big giveaway. And an idea I have is to try to get one of those Xbox fridges next week and do a giveaway for it. But we'll see about that. I do have ideas to do some more Division memorabilia. If you look behind me, I've got tons of Division memorabilia. Some of it is very personal and extremely rare, so that won't ever be given away. But I may look to see if I can find any more of these figures. Obviously, the Division 1 figure isn't going anywhere, but the 2 Division 2 ones you might be able to find. So I might see if I can track those down and maybe give those away. I might do some headphones again, like I did recently, probably some nicer ones. The last headphones I gave away were only worth like $50. Like, they're nice. But I'll see if maybe I can get maybe I can even get like a really good deal on some really nice headphones and give those away. Or I'm open to suggestions. So if you have an idea for a giveaway, I am all into that. I do have some streams coming up where I want to really focus on my Extra Life giveaway or fundraiser for Extra Life. We have raised $500 this year, really without me trying that hard. I would really like to hit 1,000. That was my goal this year. So, expect to see me pushing that a bit harder. I have decided to basically just stop messing with the Manscaped promo. That seemed really cool at first, and they approached me, and I was really honored, and I really appreciated the products they sent me, and they're great. Like that trimmer is really, really nice. It's very well made. It's really nice. I highly suggest you go buy one. You can get 20% off through me using the code BOND, but I'm not gonna keep pushing that right now. I suspect I probably didn't sell any for them. I doubt the campaign will continue, and that's fine. I would rather do different types of ads than that. So I will not annoy you guys with those ads anymore, at least for now. And that's where we're going to wrap it up. So I do stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/BondDiesel, and I've been doing that 3 or 4 times a week, more recently, including live recording this podcast, as well as some live reactions and a few gameplay streams a week. If you want to check me out on Twitter, check out @BondDiesel for my minute-to-minute musings, or check out @the EchoCast if you just want gaming stuff and EchoCast podcast stuff. If you want some merch for the EchoCast or for BondDiesel, you can check out streamlabs.com/BondDiesel. I highly suggest the mugs. I try to keep the prices really low on them because everyone likes a cool little unique mug. And that's all I have. So until next time.